was still at its beginning stage. It was still being shaped. But I was really hoping that that movement will mature politically. Like, instead of just dwelling on the electoral practice or the electoral exercise centered around candidates or centered around Lenny Robredo, I was hoping that that pink tide can cover issues regarding the workers, regarding the oppression that's happening, and would mature, go beyond simple discourse on good governance or simple discourse on historical revisionism, and will embrace worker issues, will embrace farmer issues, will embrace issues of the majority who are poor, meaning to say, will make claims upon society itself. Not only about our political culture, not only about our style of governance, but will make claims upon our social structure. And it had a lot of potential to be able to reach that kind of a maturity. But unfortunately, and this is really sad, it did not happen that way. It was limited to the electoral type of discourse at the present, okay? But I still believe that the young people who were drawn, because they were drawn into political action, and there was some positive things about it, because consistently, this movement rejected the traditional politicians and the dynasties. The young people did, the members of the Generation Z. They rejected the established names. And one of the proofs that I will always cite would be the results of the mock elections in the different schools and universities in the Philippines. Because before the actual elections, there will be mock elections in order to measure from among the students whom are they going to choose for the elections for president, vice president, and the senators. And consistently, they rejected the established names. They rejected the traditional politicians. They rejected the dynasties. And I still remember, and I could cite the number 1 to 6, which won in those mock elections. Of course, it's a foregone conclusion that in those mock elections, Lenny Robredo won for president, Kiko Pangilinan, vice president. For the senatorial, I could still cite by memory that the number 1 candidate that they voted, the students voted, was Chel Jong, who is not a member of an existing political clan. Risa Ontiveros, who is from the progressive movement. Number 3, Laila de Lima, who was in jail at the time. 4, 5, 6, it was the 3 of us would occupy either 4 or 5 or 6. Nery Colmenares from the progressive movement, Teddy Bagila, and myself. It's only in the mock elections that I won. I was saying we must pass a law that elections in this country must be settled in the schools. And that will bring a lot of changes in our country. But it indicates the temperament, the beginnings of the political consciousness among our new generation of Gen Z. And I would also like to state that in our fight against in our fight for climate justice, I will always encounter young people, the Generation Z. In the fight for gender rights, it would always be the Generation Z. That's where the cancel culture, originated, right? They will cancel people who are reactionary in their views. They will call them out. It's the Generation Z. And it only takes some type of some set of circumstances to be able to draw them. We must draw them, draw the young people into actual political action. And they have done that in 2022. And remember, they acted on their politicization. They acted on it by going house to house. They were not paying. They went house to house, tried in their own, what would I say, inexperienced way, yet, tried to explain to the majority who that we must not vote for Marcos. These are the candidates that we must vote for. They volunteered without pay. And if you quantify the amount of money that a politician should spend in order to have that type of a machinery, if it was just a machinery, that a politician would have spent billions of pesos. And that was for free. They volunteered for free. That was the level of their political action. So there's potential there. And that's the reason why after the elections, I tried to speak to them. Even if I was not part of the Lenny slate. I went to the Lenny HQ in order to speak to these young people who were gathered there. They were crying. They were emotional. They thought it was really tragic that Marcos won. And I was trying to tell them that this is not the end. This should be the start. We must shift from electoral to political. Unfortunately, it did not happen that way, and I would say it's because of the failure of leadership. Failure to lead these politicized young people. Failure of the leadership to sustain their political action. That instead of drawing them to political action, this rising movement, pink tide, instead of raising it to a higher level of action, it was demobilized and worse, depoliticized. Because the message after the elections was, let's not be political as of this moment. And demobilizing them, drawing them away from political action. And we are still suffering from that failure. A crime, I would say. A crime in history. And what we have to do right now, because it is still there, what we have to do is to harness this political force, these young people. I am a labor leader. I believe, as a matter of principle, and I dedicated my life to this principle, I believe that the force, the class force, that will ultimately change society would be the proletariat, the workers. I believe in that. But I do understand that right now they are in survival mode. They have to be brought into political action. But which political movement? We don't have one yet. The young people must create that political movement, that democratic movement, and make claims not only upon our electoral politics, make claims upon our society. And if we have created the democratic movement from the ground, not only for elections, then we could draw the workers, because in the meantime, the workers are fighting for betterment of their conditions. This is a real fight, a real struggle. We have now a movement of young people with aspirations, but it needs real struggles. It cannot simply go on TikTok or Facebook in order to tweet and post about changes that you want. It needs to be merged with real struggles on the ground. So if we have a political movement with aspirations linked to the actual struggles of those struggling for a better world, merge them together, then we will have a movement for change. And I believe we can create that movement for change. We were already on the verge, actually, in 2022. And we failed. We cannot afford to fail again. And that is the reason why we are still running. Because the reason why, even if I lost, I never felt I lost. without money, without machinery, I was able to get such number of votes, a significant number of votes relative to the fact that I'm penniless and without any machinery. Why? Because there are these young people who supported me and I would still run in order to talk to that market. Sorry for the term market. But we have a market. Our discourse for change, it has a market. And we cannot ignore that market. Otherwise, we lose by default to those who will simply talk nonsense. To the political class and the political dynasties who have no advocacy, no program, and they're not different from each other. And that's the reason why they will reduce the electoral exercise not to a discussion of issues, they will reduce it to budots. Do you know budots? To sing and dance on TikTok to entertainment, which is empty. We lose by default to that. And we cannot afford to lose by default to them. We must nurture this market and we must strengthen it. And once we strengthen it, we must make its consciousness, try to elevate its consciousness, and we must make its aspiration for changes in our society dominate, be the dominant view, the dominant idea that will animate changes in our society. And I express 100% or more than 100% hope that that will happen.
Thank you. More questions?
Just a clarification.
I think you need to clarify the word mock, because in rural areas, the mock or pre-election, the results of that were the ones that were eventually sent to Manila. So people are being cheated in this way, in rural areas. That's number one. Secondly, it's easier in rural areas the votes from the barangay, which reaches Manila. In some areas there will be 300 for Alini. When the results were discovered in Manila, it was all for Marcos, nothing for Alini. So there are two issues which need to be clarified.
So, you're referring to the electoral fraud. Electoral fraud that happened during the elections.
It's not very noticeable, except that there is a huge insistence. If you want to get your money at the pre-election, you have to vote this, it.
Yes.
And the people say, well, it doesn't matter anyway, it's only a pre-election, so it doesn't.
Yes, that's quite that's noted. I just would like to add also to that, and that's the reason why. I never subscribe to the view of the Bobotante as an explanation for the restoration of the Marcoses. You know what is meant by Bobotante? It means that the voters are simply stupid, and they blame the masses. There's a view going around, circulating around, that Marcos became president because the masses they lack intelligence, and that's the view that I oppose. I hated that view and I opposed it right on. That it's not because of that. We must understand that elections are not a reflection. They're not a reflection of what the masses really want. Because down from the precinct level, their own consent is already they're already threatened. They cannot express their real political will and intention. Their consent is already vitiated right at the precinct level. You go to the local areas and you are identified, for example, as someone who will not vote for the mayor. You vote for an alternative candidate. These trapos have already perfected the art of monitoring and intelligence work. And they should have, our national intelligence are really, their work is really garbage, right? They should have appointed these local trapos into our National Intelligence Coordinating Agency. They would have gotten the information that they want against the national threats, because down at the precinct and barangay level, they know per individual, per family. They list them down. Who are those who are against us? And if you're part of that list, you cannot access public services. You go to the public hospital, what will happen to you? If you are, they call contras partidos. Right? And if that's the situation on the ground, do you think that the masses really love the trapos? Even if they vote for them? Because they need access to hospitals. They need the 4Ps to supplement what they don't have. And not to mention the outright threat and intimidation. Because there are killings happening. Elections would be always a bloody period in the Philippines. People die. Like people who campaign for candidates who are from another party. So, consent here, with the use of elections in the Philippines, is manufactured consent. And then, that's only one layer to the fraud. The other one would be through the COMELEC, right? Through the voting machines. And that's why electronic voting, or using technology in order to address cheating would not really address cheating, right? Like it will also equip cheating with technology. The problem is really the system on how we change it. So that's one thing that I would add from the observation. It's very true. Cheating from the precinct level down to the national level, with the fraud, with the vote buying, and the entire point of this is to manufacture consent. In short, manufacture results.
Thank you.
What's your advice to the Colombians?
I really would like to take this moment and opportunity to give an advice to Father Gore.
We're on the way out. All these young ones here.
I dream of seeing again that period, and I would consider it as the most glorious period in the church's history, that priests were with the oppressed. Glorious period. It influenced me. That's the reason why I'm like this. It's the reason why I am an activist. Because I have seen priests suffering with the oppressed. Getting jailed, like Father Go. Not only that, laying their lives. An entire generation of priests and religious and nuns were drawn into that, into action. Not divorced from their faith, but because of their faith. And you know, for example, Mark and my team, when I talk about Jesus, they would already be like trying to tune out. Because I can talk about Jesus for several hours. Because I have a different way. Not really different, because I don't think it is a marginalized view. My view of who Jesus is as a revolutionary, nothing less. As someone who wanted to reverse the social order. If he had a political principle or philosophy, it is the philosophy of reversal, reversing the social order. And that's the reason why he uttered the Beatitudes, right? Reversing the the social order. Blessed are the poor, the hungry. Woe to you who are rich. It is better for a camel to enter the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. The first will be last, and the last will be first. It is nothing less than reversing the social order. And if you talked about the kingdom of God, it is very clear. It's not way up there. Kingdom of God being established here, where justice and righteousness will reign, where death even will be conquered, hunger, inequality will be conquered. And that's the reason why he was crucified. And crucifixion is a punishment for rebels. Rebels against the social order. And I would like to witness the glorious age of the church once again, where the church will stand with the oppressed and the poor. And as I would like to assert, and once again, live the example of Jesus of Nazareth.
So we will have to end the open forum. To end our morning session in the open forum, can I ask Father Leo?
Yeah,